So today I'll be presenting the paper titled Reinforcement Learning as one big sequential modeling problem. It was work presented in 35th conference in Neuro IPS by Michael Jenner, Kui-Yang Lee, Sergey Repin from University of California at Berkeley. These are the outlines of the agenda that we'll go through today, starting with highlights. We know that modern machine learning and deep learning techniques have been successfully and grateful perform well with the increasing of amount of data. But this is particularly clear for recent advancement in sequential modeling, where simply increases in size of the architecture as well as data show different qualitative capabilities. But to be honest, when it comes to reinforcement learning, this is not like variable. So the author in reinforcement learning try to also answer this similar question by investigating how they can reforming the reinforcement learning problem as a sequence generating problem, and also if we can use the tools that have been using in other domains like natural language processing, whereby we model like some sequences, if it can do the same in reinforcement learning problem. At the same time, we know that reinforcement learning have proven to be more complicated, and also at the same time, reinforcement learning algorithms have been used to solve so many complicated and have been successfully introduced to large number of problems. So can we like transform those succession along with these current tools that have been used in order to improve the performance of the reinforcement learning algorithm? So in this presentation we are going to explore the same thing. If we can tackle this reinforcement learning with the tools that have been using sequential modeling in other domains. So the core of this approach is trajectory transformer, which have been trained on the sequence of state, action, and reward, and then use a set of beam search based techniques as the planners. And then at the end we will generate the generative model that will be generating trajectories that look like a large language model, and planning using technique or algorithm similar to beam search, which has been used in natural language processing. Introduction. So we can have this kind of settings whereby we have vectors of consisting of 3 components, which is a state, action, and reward, and then feed this to trajectory transformer, and then try to learn how to generate the end step or H step ahead of the current step or state, or at this current time step. So this is what we want to do. So given this sequence, can we generate H or certain number of these trajectories with the help of a trajectory transformer? So this is one of the want to highlight. Second one, can we condition the model in order to move, for example, from state point start, which is denoted by black dot here, and move to the blue dot on the other side. So this they try to show if by modifying a little bit the algorithm can still work with the goal condition RL. Also, in terms of like imitation learning or offline reinforcement learning, can we mimic the expert agents, or can we learn from the data and then avoid problems such as compounding error that can face other generative models that we know, like feed-forward model? So this is a kind of question that you want to answer. So in this paper, the author contribute the following. So first, the method that can work in solving problem with minimal or no modification in the planning algorithm in imitation of offline as well as code condition RL. Second, they introduce a new way to deal with myopia problems that may arise in offline reinforcement learning. And the last one is they evaluate their approach in huge benchmarkings, as well as they analyze different components that shows the strengths of their approach as well as the limitation that can allow us to work on for the future work. The material. So let's move to directly to trajectory transformer. How do we train them, and how do we get them to do the sequence generation? So this is the core part of the this paper, whereby we train transformer trajectory on a unstructured sequence for modeling transformer architecture, whereby given the trajectory consists of 3 tuples, and then can we learn some behavior on how to generate these kind of sequences. So in the event of continuous state and action, they discretize each dimension independently. They assume that state has n dimension and is a m action dimension. It's a dimension of the action, and then the sequence will have this length, so it's represented like this. And the parameter of the trajectory can be conditional probability as and then the objective maximization during training is given by this loss function, whereby the first component is when we haven't shown the sequence, the whole component of the trajectory, but only when we are presenting with the state. So given the state, can we also mimic, or with some probability can we likely get this state? For the second component, we now have the access to the proceedings action, so including the state and the action, can we use them to predict the action? So second component deals with the action alone, and then the last part is for goal or reward generation. Given the action taken and state, given that along with this trajectory, can we generate the reward? So this is what the objective looks like. Then the parameter of the trajectory data is indicated by here, and the model is a model is a transformer decoder mirroring the GPT architecture. So they use simplified form of GPT. There's less number of layers in order to assess the potential of or the capability of their proposed method. They also use the training is performed with the standard teaching for forcing procedure using training sequence modeling. In case of planning with the beam search, this is where we try to find most likely is a state or trajectory which can lead us to more promising trajectories, or in case of a reward like target or goal, which trajectory can lead us to the best rewarding. So this is a typical beam search will be being used in sequential modeling domain, whereby you can start with some empty or given the state, or in our case, and then from 1 to t try to compute the candidate's single state extension by computing what is likely, and then from that we can check how we can extend the given like candidate, if candidate is likely to be similar to the given data. And then we use argmax to check the likelihood likely to open. So we compute the likelihood and we maximize the likelihood of that given token. Then at the end we return only those the probability, the candidate that give us higher probability or likelihood given the certain input. So this is same way, but in in different settings we use planning. They use planning algorithm in different style. So for example, in mutation learning, the goal is to regenerate the distribution of the data. Given the training data, we can directly optimize the probability of trajectory. So given the trajectory, how likely can we how likely, given the data, can we reproduce the same sample? So this can be achieved by simply setting the conditioning input x to the current state, and optionally we can use also the previous history. So the result of this procedure is tokenized trajectory beginning from a current state that is high probability and data distribution. If the first action AT in the sequence is enacted and beam search is repeated, we have a preceding horizon control. In case of goal conditioning, the goal probability of the past given the future are still well defined, allowing us to condition samples not only on the preceding state, action and reward, but also any future contexts that we wish to for that to occur. So given the, we can extend by adding the goal state at the end. So this procedure of condition resembles prior methods that use training goal conditioning in some of the previous work, and also related to reliability technique in model free reinforcement learning. So in their framework, it is identical to standard subroutine in sequence modeling, inferring the most likely sequence given available evidence. In offline reinforcement learning, given the data, this can optimize the sequence using algorithm 1. But due to the presence of reward signal, we can the transformer parameter we can optimize them by maximize the reward objective given training and using the searching algorithm. However, being comes with a risk of myopia behavior. Then myopic behavior, there is a need for additional information to mitigate this issue, and by appending the additional information that is reward to go, which is a heuristic additional quantity, they can solve that problem. And this reward heuristic additional quantity is given by this. So we have a trajectory, and then we can compute this discounted return and then append it by the end of the data. So the new data will look like this. So when it comes to offline reinforcement learning, we can see that when using transformer reinforcement reference, we have reference and then transformer trajectory, and then forwarding. At this point, we see that there's given the feed forward, we have accumulating error. As we go on, we have problem of the model tend to fail. But in transformer, using transformer, we can somehow even generate the sequences that is distinguishable from the reference. So the discretization approach, they use a uniform as well as quantile methodology, whereby uniform all tokens for a given dimension correspond to the fixed width of the original condition space. But for quantile, all tokens for a given dimension account for an equal amount of probability mass under the empirical data distribution, with each token account for 1 out of every V data, which is vocabulary size point in the training set. When it comes to the result, we see given this data in imitation length, transformer trajectory were able to mimic almost indistinguishable if we see from the reference point of view. But for feed forward, it was tend to accumulate errors which tend to fail after a long horizon. So this shows that trajectory transformer can predict longer horizon compared to other given techniques. In error accumulation, also they use humanoid as a preview in the previous slide we have shown, and also they use Markovian transformer to see the difference. So as we can see here, transformer alone keep on outperforming other techniques. When it comes to attention patterns, which have been used in language modeling to analyze and evaluate sequential generation, we see that in when we were given only the portion of the data, we see that for this part, the other method failed to show the dependence of the between they keep on relying on the some of the data. But when it comes to trajectory transformer, it was capable of not relying only from few number of steps, but also from length horizon data. When it comes to some of the other experiment, we see they use different data set with different difficulties, and we see trajectory transformer outperform other methodologies. Other experiment to show offline performance given different model like behavior cloning and other techniques, trajectory transformer outperform all the methodology. This proven that trajectory transformer can still perform so well, also given the data. And other when combined with Q-learning to guide the trajectory transformer, also we see that so when combining with Q-learning, also shows that the trajectory transformer also can still outperform all other techniques. When it comes to goal condition, also we see that Trajectory transformer with casual codes condition in conditional various of the four rooms environment that are visualized as curve passing through all the encountered state with current, which shows saturation as the time progresses, which show to be effective and consistent. And as conclusion, which is that this algorithm can handle the visit of set of problem, which including standard components of reinforcement learning, such as policy modeling and value function and a single sequence model. I derive superior sequence modeling with minimum modification, beam switch. Complex model but effective of various reinforcement learning setting, including mutation, goal, rich and offline. More effective is continuous data to fit a standard architecture instead of modifying the architecture to handle continuous input. And the rest can be seen like this. So this is all I have for this presentation. Thank you for listening.